Greetings, mortals. Welcome to Neshae Reads SCP-3711, Suffering on the Rising Tide.
Object Class: Killer. Special Containment Procedures: Imaginative thaumatologists and thaumaturges employed by the Foundation, or detained at Foundation sites are to be provided with dream-suppressant drug therapy, and psychological counseling. As a large number of individuals affected by SCP-3711 are outside of the Foundation's jurisdiction, complete suppression of SCP-3711 is currently impossible, unless apprehended. Research into methods of suppressing SCP-3711 on a large scale is ongoing. Description: SCP-3711 is a mental and physiological condition which affects individuals who possess, are trained in, or develop the capability to employ imaginative thaumatological manipulation. Based on carvings and murals recovered from Bronze Age sites, this condition is known as the Song of Regretful Freeing. This condition varies considerably depending on the skill, natural power, and age of the individual. However, several core attributes are noted. SCP-3711 initially manifests when an individual develops imaginative thaumatological capability. Individuals begin experiencing lucid dreams of varying natures and intensity wherein the individual has complete control of the dream's progression, until the end of said dream. All recorded initial dreams have ended the same, with subsequent dreams escalating the initial ending over time. The content of these dreams serve as a motivating force for the dreamer to increase their thaumatological capabilities. Lucid dreaming continues well past development of thaumatological capability. Key areas of the brain associated with artistic creativity and scientific creativity are heavily impacted by SCP-3711, resulting in a significant increase in neuron development. Thorough brain scanning and mapping studies have determined the majority of these changes occurred during either sleep or the active use of thaumatological capabilities. Continued use of imaginative thaumatological manipulation results in significant changes in brain structure over long periods of time. This results in the manifestation of more prominent and ubiquitous symptoms such as auditory hallucinations, temporary periods of dissociation from reality, memory loss, compulsive urges and restlessness, often involving a need to move elsewhere, a sudden and pronounced affinity for aquatic environments. Personnel experiencing the more severe symptoms of SCP-3711 experience physiological alterations, and subsequent deterioration due to. All individuals in the late stages of SCP-3711 within Foundation custody have perished as a result of prolonged dehydration and oxygen deprivation over the course of 48 hours. Date: March 5, 2023. Interview log. Interviewer: Dr. Alva Emir. Interviewee: Dr. Sarah Stewart, former Serpent's Hand activist. Forward: Dr. Stewart submitted herself to Foundation custody after 5 years of constant thaumatological activism against the captivity of anomalous humanoid entities. Dr. Stewart began experiencing late-stage symptoms congruent with SCP-3711 and sought treatment and asylum in exchange for strategic information on fellow activists. At the time of submission, Dr. Stewart's symptoms were noted to be mild, generating some interest in studying her progression. As a result, she was provided with standard treatment for SCP-3711, and standard level 4 humanoid privileges. Following repeated negotiations and numerous instances of cooperation, Dr. Stewart was granted level 3 housing. Dr. Stewart has not been visited regularly and was not under active surveillance for the 3 years of her containment until this interview, due to good behavior. She had been receiving monthly physician visits to assess her condition's progress. Dr. Alva Emir was assigned as Dr. Stewart's regular physician following a rotation of several individuals, wherein Dr. Emir established a rapport with Dr. Stewart's. Dr. Stewart called for an interview a week before the normally scheduled visit, citing somewhat concerning developments. Begin log. Dr. Emir enters Dr. Stewart's personal housing unit after announcing herself. She approaches the dining room table where interviews and examinations are normally conducted. She stops, looking in Dr. Stewart's direction. Dr. Stewart is seated, her exposed skin is notably red, especially around the hands and face. A ridge of what appears to be cartilage with loose flesh has begun to form on each forearm, and just above each ankle. A pile of peeled-off skin is at Dr. Stewart's feet.
Christ, Sarah, when did this begin?
2 weeks. Give or take a few days.
You didn't call it in until today. Why would you wait this long? Tell me you didn't think a rash that bad would just go away.
To be fair, Alva, it started really small and just spread progressively. I thought it was 'cause I was scratching, and that if I stopped it would go away. So I stopped, and it kept going. So I thought it was some sort of allergic reaction to the shampoo, like the last time. Then, I started growing lumps out of my arms.
Dr. Stewart holds up her arm, presenting the protrusion. Areas where the skin has been peeled away are visible. Small patches of what appear to be iridescent pink scales come into view. Alva sighs and sits at the table.
Sarah, you have scales on your arm. That is not the result of an allergic reaction. You have a PhD in theoretical physics. You're a scientist for myth. Christ's sakes.
Theoretical physics doesn't equip me to handle medical issues, Alva. We've had that discussion. I thought they were hives. They sure itch like them.
You'd best come over here so I can have a look. I may have to call this one in.
You know how much I hate the needles.
I do, which is why I told you to call in case anything abnormal started. Yet here we are.
I called as soon as something abnormal did start. A rash isn't abnormal when you've been using magic half your adult life.
The mythology induced or not, you should have called sooner. Don't make me chide you like this. I'm not your mother.
You might as well be. You care more than she ever did.
Dr. Stewart rises and approaches the table, before pausing and going to the small kitchenette. She retrieves a cup and a jug, which she fills with water. She sits at the table, pouring a cup of water for herself.
Do you want a cup?
I'm fine, thanks. We'll skip the formalities. We've been doing this long enough that I know you're you, despite the rash in the scales.
I'd make a sarcastic or sassy response, but right now I just want to figure out what's happening to me.
Do you want to do the standard spiel, or just describe to me what's wrong?
Let's go with what's wrong. I don't need to know about the Hippocratic Oath and humanoid ethical protocols for the 1000th time.
Could have sworn you enjoyed hearing it. But yes, tell me about your symptoms.
Dr. Stewart refills the glass of water.
There are a lot. Where should I start?
Physical first.
Obviously, there's the rash. It started at my fingers and has just been crawling up my arms and legs. Started on my face on Saturday. Or Friday. I'm losing track of time. Then there is this horrible lump in my arm. It's got all this loose flesh, and Alva, I can't believe I'm saying this, but part of me is thrilled that it's growing in, and I don't know why the fuck that is.
Take a breath, Sarah. Is there anything else? New limbs?
Dr. Stewart pulls back her hair and turns her head. Flesh has begun radiating from her ears, mostly at the tip, with small protrusions down the length, forming cartilaginous membranes resembling fins. The coloration has been altered on this new growth, taking on a pink hue.
No new limbs. But I looked in the mirror this morning and
I see.
5 seconds of silence. Dr. Stewart refills the glass of water.
Do you have any idea what is happening to me?
This isn't gonna comfort you. I don't. Most people don't survive this long, Sarah.
Dr. Stewart refills her glass of water for the 4th time, and ignores the statement.
God, it's so dry in here. I would kill for a pool or a place to swim.
You're dodging. The bath and shower not sufficient. In any case, I've done all I can in regards to requisition. A pool is beyond my abilities.
I know. I'd rather not talk about my imminent demise again. It's not the same. There is this constant beating urge in the back of my head to go swimming in the deepest body of water imaginable. It's maddening.
This is the same urge you've been having in the dreams, being submerged in water, yes? You have mentioned this several times before.
Yeah,
Dr. Stewart focuses on an empty corner of the room, near the camera. Her irises are noted to have experienced a slight change in color since the last interview. Dr. Emir does not comment on this change.
It's like a singing in my head.
Dr. Stewart refills her glass of water for the 5th time.
You mentioned this all began during the first dream. Honestly, I'm surprised you've not talked more about it. It seems like something you enjoyed greatly. Would you mind indulging me and expanding on that?
It's magic, Alva. Call it what it is.
We both know I can't deviate from the terminology in the interviews. That's beside the point though. Feel free to share the details of your first dream.
Maybe in a minute.
Sarah?
Yeah.
You're mumbling again.
Yeah.
You're worrying me. Do you want to talk about the dream?
Sure.
15 seconds of silence as Dr. Stewart continues to stare into the corner. Her pupils dilate. She absently peels loose flesh from her arms, revealing more scales.
Sarah?
Dr. Stewart does not respond. Dr. Emir snaps her fingers in front of Stewart's face several times.
Sarah, can you hear me?
Her eyes focus on the snapping fingers.
What? Alva? What are you doing here? How'd you get in? When did you get in? It's not been 4 weeks yet. Oh my god, what happened to my arm?
We were just discussing that. You called me up because of the rash, and we were discussing your dreams and your physical condition.
I don't remember. Wait, I do remember. It's just fuzzy.
It's okay. You had a dissociative episode. It happens.
It feels so weird. I'm dreaming? I'm sorry.
You're not dreaming, this is real. It's okay. Let's talk about your first dream. It will help you remember.
I still feel fuzzy.
That's normal. Just start talking, it will help.
The first time I used magic, like really used it, with my imagination, and not some ordered ritual, that night I had an incredibly vivid dream. I was me, but I wasn't me, if that makes sense. I was human, I think. My dad was human, but my mom wasn't. She was some sort of scaly merperson. It's hard to describe.
Don't exert yourself trying. Just give me what you can.
Dr. Stewart goes to pour another glass of water. The jug is empty.
Shit. I need more water.
I'll get it for you.
Dr. Ember refills the jug and returns to the table.
Thanks, my mouth is dry as a desert. So I get sent out from the village on this adventure after some ancient relic, and along the way, I discover I can use magic, right? Like, not the stuffy limited stuff, like full-blown powerful magic, only limited by your mind. The same stuff I had just tried out outside of my dream. And my god, Alva, it was incredible. I could turn myself into dragons, lift mountains, heal grievous mortal wounds, with the flick of my finger, and the only limit was the scope of my mind.
It sounds like you were more than just a thaumaturg at that point, more like you were a reality bender or even a deity. After all the time I've spent talking with you, it surprises me you didn't immediately conjure enough chocolate cake to last a lifetime.
I was, and the thought didn't occur to me. Retrieving the relic was easy, and after that, a great vicious horde of demons arose from the underworld and I was cast off to fight them. Entire armies fell before my whistling ice blades.
Forgive me if I sound incredulous, but I would get bored after so much of that. There's only so many easy victories you can have before a person, even a god, gets bored.
Dr. Stewart pours herself another glass. Her breathing is notably shallower than earlier in the interview. She has begun peeling the skin around her neck, tugging at loose flaps of excess flesh as if they are choking her.
It's so damn dry in here. Like all the moisture has been sucked out.
I'll talk to environmental about having the humidity adjusted.
Thanks. After I beat the demon horde, I started. There was this painful hollow longing in my stomach, like something was missing. And then, there was this singing. It was like nothing I've ever heard.
Describe it.
It was like someone poured a river of honey and molasses into the air, and gave my ears tongues with which to lap from it. So I followed the voice. I walked for what felt like hundreds of years and came upon a great and deep ocean of many colors. Like the waves, a sudden and powerful urge was clawing at my legs, and suddenly I was on my belly and being pulled down into the water, and I desperate. Sorry, I need water.
Dr. Stewart looks at the cup and pushes it aside, picking up the jug and drinking directly from it.
You're dehydrated. I need to call this in.
No. I need to finish.
Alright, you're worrying me with the hyperventilating.
She ignores the previous statement.
And I was dragged into the ocean, and Alva, before me. There before me was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. 4 yellow eyes gazed upon me with a love I had never felt. She was bound and chained, and suffering, blood dripping from her ankles and her wrists. Yet she sang. She sang, and it was so beautiful. It was a song about the love of everything and betrayal. Alva, I've heard it every day. Every night. I hear it now.
Sarah, it's just an auditory hallucination. Calm down.
I can't, Alva. It's stronger around you than anyone else, and I can't. I can't shut it out.
She begins gasping for breath.
I can't breathe.
Dr. Stewart falls to the floor, clawing at her neck. Layers of excess skin are pulled away, revealing pink scales underneath. The scales crack and rupture, forming 4 slits on each side of the neck, which are coated in a slick membrane. A 5th slit forms further down around the shoulders. A retractable layer of unidentifiable tissue begins forming, but does not proceed further.
Christ alive. Medical emergency. Memory containment sector, cell 35.
End log. Post-word. Dr. Stewart expired 3 days following her initial collapse due to a combination of dehydration and protracted and sudden oxygen deprivation, resulting in significant brain damage. The post-death autopsy revealed significant alterations to her anatomy, which appeared to have altered her respiratory tract, sealing the air passage to her lungs, and promoting the development of gills. Further analysis revealed that, despite this initial sealing, Dr. Stewart's air passages had been cleared by the time of her death.
Should have gotten her that pool.
Recovered journals. The following journals were recovered from a buried chest discovered on the island of Switha, and dates to the 9th century AD. The contents, originally written in a mixture of Norse, Gaelic, and Pictish, had been translated and interpreted. The last entry was written and translated from Proto-Nordic script. Further excavations revealed a chamber previously used to hold an SCP-3703 instance.
628 AD. Ungrateful. It is all I have to say about the community, who left me here on this island, alone. Banished for the crime of healing through that sacred arcane art. No, it was not until I dared to imagine that they cast me from their ranks. Oles's daughter was saved from the wrath of a cough and whooping. Missionaries from the south led them to believe my practice was sin. That freedom of magic is to be feared. At their behest I was expelled, and shipped to this rock. Food and water to last 4 months, and tools to build what I need to survive. A waste. 628 AD. Their boats have passed many times in the months since. Fishermen. They gaze upon me as I work upon the shore, and tend the meager farm which I have built. Their gaze filled with judgment, I am sure. I have nothing but contempt for their foolishness. A vision was granted to me this past night. A man I was not, a woman, a healer of old covered in scales and fins. A plague swept upon my village, and through the gracious kindness of the arcane, I sought to sweep it from the bodies of my wife, and the children. It was a power I have only begun to taste, yet it felt as if I had experienced it before. I could not cleanse their souls of the taint, despite my power, and at first I despaired. My despair ebbed, and with its ebbing came the waxing of a song. A tune of such fine nature that it beats in my head as I sat upon the rocky shores. A high-strung bittersweet melody which invokes an ache for the waves and surf. Whispered promises of healing and lures of greater freedom, of arcane power that even the strongest of idols could not grant. I followed this song to the water's edge. A swift sunrise before me, under a crystal blue sky. Upon the water, I walked, and before me, beauty unmatched, a woman, taller than the tallest of mountains, gazed at me. Her 4 eyes are burned into my mind, the tune she sang wistful and longing. Great barbarous chains wrapped around her legs and arms, blood dripping from her limbs. The anguish at her suffering that ran across my spine is indescribable. And to me she said, "I love you. For your fathers have sinned, but you are not to blame." And then I awoke. 634 AD. I have continued to record the progression of my dreams. As of late, I have felt strange. My contempt for my former peers, those who have cast me out, has softened into naught but pity. My anger ebbs, and all attempts to draw it forth yield nothing. The songs from the dreams begin and stop throughout each day. I find myself listening and humming. They fill my mind with absent thoughts, creative visions, and distract from all tasks. Whispers of greatness chip at the edges of my consciousness, and so I have practiced the freedoms from the idols of the magic. I have built a house, but I stay not in it. The tickle of the waves at my feet, and the ebb and flow of the tides are far more comforting. Alas, the winter prevents such indulgences, and I long for their gentle caress when forced to be by the fireside. There is a long-forgotten cairn in 2 stones, carved by men and not men, upon this rock. A tunnel leads beneath them into chambers, unused since ancient times. There is something there. Something I dare not approach. Bodies, bones, corpses, mashed and piled against each other, floating behind some arcane barrier reeking of powerful magics with which I am unfamiliar. The walls of the chamber are masterful works of art and creation. Depictions of what are surely events we know not of, and times long past. There is text, and carved scripture, I cannot begin to read. I shall visit often, I believe, to appreciate these works. The songs are strongest there.
638 AD. 10 years have passed since I was sent here. I do not recall much of that time. It has grown fuzzy, distant as if a dream. The dreams have grown stronger, real. The songs are all around, and yet nowhere to be found. My contempt is fading, and I find, during the early hours of the night, before I fall into slumber, myself wishing to aid those who forsook me. A plague has descended upon their homes. The fisherman is sparse, and winter has been unkind from the distant. My sight, average as it once was, glimpses the fish in their scales, and their desperate times as they thrash in the throes of death. My skin burns with an insatiable fire. I scratch and I scratch, and the flesh falls as if it were burnt from the harsh summer sun underneath. Scales, a bright greenish blue, of the kind only a gemstone could achieve. Bones and flesh shape, and I have grown taller. There are days where it feels as if my hips are being drawn by ropes, stretching outwards. The flesh betwixt my fingers and toes grows loose and crawls forward at night. I feel it in my sleep, through the dreams. They are wet, but they are mine. Unbearable thirst plagues my mind, and I find, even now as I sit in a pool brought by the tides, writing with pen the name summoned from the freedom, that it is not enough. Upon the chest, with which once was flat, I found, a mere month ago, the flesh of the 2 points swollen and tender. Now they rival the bosom of a young woman, and no cloth will hold them lest I succumb to temptations. Even the length of my hair, long as it has become, stirs sensation. 639 AD. All animosity I once held towards my community has faded. Only mourn and sorrow at their lost remains. I have begun to visit through the waters of Scotland Road at night. I bring healing and aid to the children, sick in their thatched beds, unable to escape fever's grip. To the farmers, I bring relief to tension and eggs. They have seen me, by light of a candle, though it is not welcome, or recognition that they show, but fear. Fear of a monster of the sea. And no longer a man. I am unsure when it happened. My thoughts have faded and returned. A feeling of fuzzy dreaminess in their place, and distant sensations are all which remains in my memories. A cavern rests where once there was none, and that is all which I know. Forcefully I was thrown into the water by the sudden act of breath and burning desire, and I submerged fully in the waves where I grew gills. My flesh has long since been stripped, and for the first time, I felt it in the dreams. No, they are no longer dreams. They are my past. and I have felt the call of Finfolk before, many times. The sorrow of its loss, and our people's grief. I am a Fin woman. Great fins hang from my arms, and my legs, and the water is now my home. I have moved the shack into the shallow tides using the great gift which has been given through the arcane. 688 AD. Beneath the waves on this isle I've dwelled for 60 years. There are none like me. Raiders have come. They seek to extinguish the creature which roams their villages at night, and all its kind. The sorcerers of the waves who steal their children. It's guided, for I have visited the village many times, and healed whilst they sleep, not stolen from them what is most precious. My people were driven long before into the waves, and have not returned. I am alone. I have destroyed my home. I have returned to the cairn, where so many longing years ago I heard the call of the mother's anguished cries. The text comes easy, the language of my people flowing from my tongue as I understand our sorrow. In great tribute and sacrifice, we seal the demons of all beneath the earth, stone, and magic given by our souls. The great word which united all in this world. Those who had seen the ages came together under many skies and many stars, and together gave their lives in love. Acts of procreation before sealing their lives beneath the night. The rite of portention was forged, and when we were done, just as we turned to free her from her chains with that which we had opened, man turned upon us, with their spears and their stolen magic, stolen knowledge. They drove us into the sea. From the rivers and the beaches, they burnt our villages. Out of greed, out of fear, the withers still lauded them so, but the transgressions would not be left. She placed, upon the very knowledge which they had been given, a punishment. She doomed those men who practiced the free gift given to our people to become they which had been driven into the seas. The drums of the hunters be ever close, and they shall never know that which is their burden. A burden that they have embraced and has freed me, and I shall choose to join those who gave everything to slay the demons and seal this place.
Due to the nature of SCP-3711, and the numerous references and cultural traditions among Finfolk society, as of this document's iteration, and under the tenets of the Finfolk Foundation Cooperative Agreement, the Finfolk are not to be subjected to procedures used to suppress SCP-3711.